What would you do if the person who had already lost his house, his car, and his peace was still trying to protect everyone around him, while the woman who loved him kept gathering small acts of hope like seeds, convinced that even broken lives could bloom again? There are days when disaster arrives loudly, tearing through a family with visible cruelty. And then there are days that look ordinary from the outside, yet carry the full emotional weight of a turning point. This was one of those days. Jack and Tu Tien were no longer standing inside the kind of life they had once imagined for themselves. Debt had already entered the family like a slow-moving fire. His mother was preparing to return to the countryside. The farm they had built with effort and tenderness was already being discussed as something that might need to be sold. Every decision now felt temporary, as if their future had been pushed into a waiting room where nothing belonged to them for certain. And yet, in the middle of that uncertainty, life continued offering strange, humble mercies. Tu Tien woke to another day of work, carried winter melon to market, sold what she could, and returned to the farm still thinking about how to ease Jack's burden. Jack, moving between the company, his mother, and Uncle Dung's new farm, kept telling himself he would fix everything somehow, even while the pressure inside him was hardening into quiet exhaustion. Then fate placed another piece of unexpected grace in their hands. Father Fuang returned, healthier, calmer, no longer drifting in sorrow, and brought not only a dog named Kai and bags of vegetable seeds, but also money, goodwill, and a path that might help save them from drowning. By evening, no miracle had solved everything. The debt remained, the fear remained, but the day had left behind something almost as valuable as money, proof that kindness returns, that hardship does not erase human loyalty, and that love becomes strongest not when life is easy, but when two people keep choosing each other while the future is still unfinished. The morning opened with the kind of brightness that can almost make a troubled heart forget itself for a few minutes. Tu Tien woke before the heat had fully settled over the farm. For a while, she remained sitting quietly, listening to the thin, ordinary sounds of the morning, the scrape of leaves against one another, the call of birds in the distance, the small, domestic silence of a place that still looked like home, even while its future remained uncertain. She had learned not to ask the day for too much. These days, peace had to be gathered in handfuls: a finished task, a small sale, a calm conversation, a meal shared without bad news. That was enough to keep hope alive. She prepared herself for the market and went to harvest winter melon. The vines lay thick and green, the fruits pale and heavy against the leaves. She moved carefully among them, choosing the ones ready to cut, lifting each with the familiarity of a woman who had learned how labor can become both livelihood and prayer. She spoke to herself from time to time, not because she was lonely in a dramatic way, but because quiet speech helped her keep courage near. She thought about drying some slices later for summer drinks. She thought about money. She thought about Jack. Above all, she thought about how every little thing she did now seemed connected to the same goal: lighten his burden, even if only by a little. By the time she reached the roadside market, the world was already alive with movement. Women were arranging vegetables on low tables. Someone was selling herbs in tied bundles. Another woman was balancing children, customers, and a pot of food all at once. Tu Tien found a place to sit, borrowed a chair, arranged the winter melons, and began calling out prices in a voice that was polite, soft, and persistent. 10,000 dong of fruit, fresh, good for cooling soup, tea, and summer cooking. Her selling style still carried traces of the girl who had once been afraid of crowds, afraid of speaking too loudly, afraid of not knowing enough. But she was changing. Little by little, day by day, she had become braver. As customers stopped, asked, bargained, and bought, she felt that familiar blend of shyness and pride. She had not been given an easy life. She had not had the chance to study much. She did not stand at the market because she had dreamed of becoming a merchant. She stood there because survival had taught her to keep trying. And in that trying, something beautiful had happened. She had begun to respect herself more. Each transaction, however small, proved that she could stand in the middle of a crowded place and make a place for herself in it. By late morning, she had sold several fruits, though not as many as she had hoped. That did not discourage her. She packed the remaining winter melon to take home and dry. Nothing would be wasted. Not food, not labor, not time. She thanked the woman who had lent her the chair, gathered her things, and headed back with the same quiet resilience that had already become part of her nature. While she was away, Jack's day had unfolded in a different rhythm. He had left early, carrying in his face the kind of calm that tired men learn to wear when too many people depend on them. At the company, he moved through work with concentration, but inside, his mind was crowded. The old projects were nearing completion. Some urgent matters were finally under control. His mother had spoken again about returning to the countryside. Uncle Doong's new farm was becoming real. The pressure had not disappeared, but it had rearranged itself. Some crises were no longer exploding. They were simply waiting. He called his mother that morning. He wanted to take her to Uncle Doong's new place before she left for the countryside. It was a simple gesture, but it came from guilt as much as affection. He knew he had failed to give her the stability she deserved. He knew she had been forced to endure worry that should never have become hers. If he could not yet restore her old life, he could at least offer her a pleasant visit, a change of air, a glimpse of the peaceful rural dream Uncle Doong was beginning to live. After that, he called Uncle Doong and confirmed he was at the farm. The day looked manageable on paper. That alone felt like a blessing. Yet, even as he worked, some inner part of him kept circling back to Tu Tien. Had she sold enough? Was she tired? Had she eaten? Had she been forced to smile through another hard day while pretending none of this uncertainty hurt her? She rarely complained. That made her easier to admire and harder not to worry about. When he finally returned toward the farm, he was more exhausted than he admitted even to himself. But the sight waiting there changed his expression before he reached the door. Tu Tien was at the yard, and beside her stood a dog he had never seen before, alert, handsome, unfamiliar, tied near the house and watching the place with bright eyes. For the first time that day, something like genuine surprise broke through his fatigue. Then she told him the news. Father Pheong had returned. That alone would have been enough to shift the atmosphere. There had been a time when his disappearance seemed like one more unresolved sorrow among too many others. He had gone away, carrying his own troubles, his own shame, his own complicated history. Jack had even asked around for news and found nothing. Now suddenly, he was back healthier, calmer, no longer wandering, and he had not returned empty-handed. Tu Tien spoke quickly at first, as people do when emotion and relief combine. Father Phuong had come while she was drying the sliced winter melon. He had brought the dog, Kai, because he knew she was often alone at the farm and wanted her to have a companion, a guard, a living presence beside her. He had brought bags of seeds too: okra, corn, leafy greens, loofah, jute mallow, small signs of future harvests, as if he were telling her in the language of plants that life still intended to go on. But there was more. He had also brought money. When she said that part, her voice changed. Gratitude and hesitation mixed together. Father Phuong had explained that land in his hometown had been compensated, that he now had some money from the settlement, and that after everything Jack and Tu Tien had done for him, he wanted to help them in return. He did not frame it as charity. He framed it as affection, as repayment, as family feeling. Tu Tien had resisted. Of course she had. Taking a large amount of money from someone older, someone she respected, someone she thought had also suffered too much, did not sit easily in her heart. In the end, she had accepted it only by naming it a loan, something they would return later, not a gift they would simply absorb. Jack listened without interrupting. When she handed him the money, he did not take it immediately. He looked at it the way a person looks at a sudden answer to a prayer they had almost stopped whispering aloud. The amount was not enough to erase all their difficulty, but it was not small either. More importantly, it carried the unmistakable weight of human loyalty. In hard times, money hurts less than pity, but means more than words, and this money had come with respect. Tu Tien told him the rest. Father Phuong had said he was considering moving back up to this area and finding a quiet place to live. He had even mentioned that perhaps, if possible, he might be interested in buying this very farm, exactly the farm Jack and Tu Tien had been thinking of selling. The thought had struck her immediately. If he bought it, he would get the peaceful place he needed, and Jack might gain the funds he desperately needed without handing the land to strangers who would never understand what had been built here. Jack sat down after hearing that. Not dramatically, quietly. The kind of quiet that comes when a man has been holding up too much for too long and suddenly discovers that life has opened one small door where before there had only been wall. He told Tu Tien that however large or small the amount might seem, what mattered most was Father Phuong's heart. Such gestures cannot be measured only in currency. They must also be weighed in memory, in the history between people, in the fact that when Father Phuong had once been low and wandering, Jack and Tu Tien had not turned him away. Tu Tien, as always, wanted to share the burden directly. She told Jack again that he should not treat her like an outsider. She knew her market work did not bring. She knew she could not solve the bank crisis or repair every problem surrounding his mother, the company, and the land. But she wanted the right to stand beside him in all of it, not only in the gentle parts. Her words were not dramatic, but they were fierce in their sincerity. Jack answered with equal gentleness. He thanked her. He told her he knew what her love meant. He admitted the money would help. He accepted that Father Phuong's feelings should be honored. But even then, some part of him still wanted to protect her from too much sacrifice. That was who he was, sometimes to his strength, sometimes to his own emotional loneliness. The conversation softened after that. They spoke of Kai, the new dog, laughing a little over his handsome face and calm behavior. They spoke of the seeds and what to plant next. They spoke of Uncle Doong's farm and how peaceful his new life already seemed. They spoke of Mother Luddy and her wish to return to the countryside soon. Bit by bit, the room filled not with certainty, but with breathing space. Tu Tien moved toward the kitchen and said she would cook. Jack offered to help. It was not a grand gesture. It was something better, ordinary companionship. While she rinsed rice and prepared the meal, he sorted the things Father Phuong had brought, checked on Kai, and stayed close. The house, which had been holding so much quiet strain these past weeks, now felt different, not secure, not healed, but less alone. Outside, the late afternoons settled over the farm. Nothing about their larger situation had fully changed. The buyers who had seen the farm had still not responded. The debt had not vanished. The future remained uncertain. Yet, the emotional weather inside the house had shifted. They were no longer standing only in loss. They were standing in the middle of unexpected human goodness. Before the meal, Jack looked once more at the money in his hand. It embarrassed him a little, humbled him, but it also steadied him. He said that when he saw Father Phuong again, he would thank him properly and treat this exactly as what Tu Tien had named it, a loan given with affection, to be repaid with dignity. Tu Tien nodded. That mattered to her. Receiving help was one thing. Receiving help without losing self-respect was another, and perhaps that was the deepest emotional truth of the day. They had not been rescued, not fully. They were still suspended inside a difficult season, but kindness had returned to them in a form both practical and profoundly human. Father Phuong had not solved their lives. He had done something gentler and perhaps more important. He had reminded them that hardship does not erase the bonds created by goodness. A dog tied in the yard, packets of seeds on the table, a few tens of millions in borrowed hope, the possibility of a farm sale that would not feel like surrender. These were not miracles. They were signs that love, loyalty, and decency were still moving quietly through the wreckage of their lives. And for Jack and Tu Tien, that was enough to keep going one more day,